Okay, hello everyone. It's 11 a.m. here in Sweden and we will get started. Welcome to this webinar on the theme Introduction to Subscription Management for B2B Companies. My name is Monica and I'm a marketing coordinator here at Younium, and I will be your host for today. So this webinar is about 30 minutes and we will have two polls. You are probably used to the polls, so it's a question pops up and you answer. We will go through the presentation first, and of course you can ask your questions in the chat, but we will take them at the end. Yes, so without any further ado, I will leave you with Niklas. Please, Niklas, the stage is all yours.
Thanks, Monica, and good day, everyone. Super excited you could join us today for an introduction to subscription management. I mean, with everyone talking about recurring revenue, anything as a service, creating longer customer relationships using subscriptions, I think it's only a matter of time until subscription management solutions are as given as having a financial system to manage the general ledger or a CRM to manage sales pipes. But I think, as you will see, there are a few different flavors of subscription management, and there are, of course, different considerations to do when deciding how to manage the subscriptions. So if we start off with one type of subscription, which is the simple subscription, it's usually very standardized, aimed at high velocity sales, often purely online. You have the customer signing up online, usually with quite limited options, for example, selecting a plan or maybe adjusting monthly or annual payment. You have your user details filled in, and then everything is done and you can start using the service. And I mean, if this business model covers all the use cases, great. But for many companies, they face a different reality. Many companies have a business that require direct sales with potential buyers, and could also include some negotiated deals. In the customer base, there's already perhaps a wide variety of plans and pricing that needs to be managed. Not everything is the new packaged perfect plan for the future. Or it might be, you have a more complex service with different modules, add-ons, extensions, or it could be, partners selling our service. So I think, as you can see, the reality for most companies is far from the standardized idea of the simple subscription, or perhaps more correctly, the very standardized subscription. And a quick test to sort of evaluate the complexity that needs to be managed in a subscription business is to have a look at some indicators. Where the first one is, do all customers have the same price and terms? There are no unique deals, or do you have variations? Secondly, what happens after the customer starts using the service? It, rarely change or never change, or do you actually have quite frequent changes to the subscription over time? Another thing is looking at who is the buyer, where in the more sort of B2C scenario, you would almost always have the same user also being the buyer. Whereas in B2B, it could be that, the buyer could be a company or a group, and, you have multiple users. And lastly as well, we sell one service that never change, or do we more have a portfolio of different products, modules, add-ons, variants, etc.? So I would say, unless all indicators would be far to the left over here, you're most likely in a subscription business that is quite advanced, either due to the nature of what you're selling, or, the nature of having been around for a while and building up some legacy as well. So sort of to sum this up, I'll present the quadrant for you, where you have one axis from left to right being, is it B2C or is it B2B or B2N in the middle? And the next one would be very standardized subscriptions at the bottom, whereas you would have more advanced subscriptions at the top. So looking more into the landscape of subscription management solutions, we have three typical players. One is the, we can do it all. There are always the SAPs, the Oracle solutions, etc., running everywhere, as long as there is a big enough amount, I would say, on the table. Secondly, there are also solutions covering a lot of the standardized subscriptions, often a lot of B2C, but also sufficient for B to small b. The scenario of businesses buying, but in a very consumer-like scenario. So that would be the gray area on screen. And then we have thirdly, niche B2B solutions covering the more complex enterprise group deals to support, the online sales channels for B2B deals, but rarely touching on the B2C side. So that is the blue area. So at Younium, we're very much focused on the blue box, and this webinar will focus on that part of subscription management.
Okay, time for the first poll. Do you agree that your company handles advanced and complex customer subscriptions? Yes or no? I'll launch the poll. So now you can answer. Yes, everyone is saying yes.
Great.
100% yes.
You come to the right place then.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so, but what does this really mean then for businesses? Well, I think one thing, and likely the most crucial thing, is that we need full control over the core process in order to be efficient and ready for scaling. So let's take a look at what the core process looks like with subscriptions. And for presenting this, we will actually start with, the traditional, order to cash flow, the traditional sales order, which was, you have an order, you get an order confirmation, you fulfill or ship something, typically goods. You have the perfect, information for doing the invoice, you get your payment, and then it's done, and we can move on to the next. So the classic solution for this was, okay, we start doing the business in the CRM system, and when we get to sort of assigned order, we push it onto the ERP system and do everything there. And of course, looking at the subscription then, well, when we're doing a new business, it's, I would say, fairly much the same in the sense that, it's starting from scratch. There are, of course, some new parameters like term lengths and so, but still starting off from scratch. Quickly, we move into the wheel of subscription management, where things will start happening quite fast. We could have auto renewals, we could have, upgrades, downgrades. Perhaps we want to bill on something that's based on the consumption or the usage of the customer, meaning that it's not something that is fixed and set. We also see that, we could have concurrent subscriptions living or being active at the same time. And sort of this will happen at the same time as we're supposed to, also, get all this from, it could be from sales, or it could be from a customer success team. At the same time, we're going to produce, the invoices, we're going to deal with the payments. At the same time, we need to have full control over the revenue recognition, and it's not that linear anymore, right? So it will just, a lot of things will keep happening, and we need to manage that. So this is where a subscription hub comes into play, where we sort of put that in between the CRM system, or it could be other systems. We have business events like a portal, a partner portal, or self-service, or something else. Typically also connecting your own services. It could be for measuring things, or it could be for provisioning, and also connecting the financial backend. So if that is sort of the core process, there are also other things that, of course, we want to manage that are, I would say, closely associated. It could be, manage refunds and credit invoices. It could be calculate commissions in our sales channels. Perhaps we want to provision our services based on the subscription items and payment status. It could be managing changes to subscriptions, and perhaps not everything is coming from sales events, right? It could be index uplifts or renewal uplifts. It could be, you know, that we introduce a new price plan, or that we want to transform from an old plan to a new plan. And naturally, of course, we want the metrics and KPIs to be available at all times for reporting, forecasting, you know, to lead the business in the right direction. So, you know, the necessity for a hub is really to ensure end-to-end support for the customer journey, you know, from the business events in perhaps the CRM systems or other channels, but also all the way to have a correct and detailed financial bookkeeping. And I think really understanding this core process and the need for, you know, having proper data in order is so crucial, because if we have that, we have a foundation to manage our subscription business. And we will now continue a bit about walking you through some benefits that are achieved with a subscription management platform. The first thing, as we said, you know, one source of truth. You know, we don't have our data, you know, in some spreadsheets, some in the CRM, some in the financial system, but really having one source of truth. We're in control and we can start automating. And typically this falls into at least 3 areas, where one is to, you know, enable growth. It could be streamlining the quote to cash process for your own sales reps and partners, but it could also be adding on additional sales channels like online or, you know, in-app. We're also talking about operations. How can we, you know, provision our services to our customers based on, you know, their subscription? But it could also be improving our customer communication, that based on something like an upcoming renewal or a change has been made, we can communicate that to the relevant person at the customer side. And last but not least, of course, you know, the financial processes that are related to subscription businesses are quite cumbersome. And we often see a large set of manual processes with, you know, these large, ever expanding, complicated spreadsheet that grows in 2 directions. So I mean, it's not uncommon that the financial part is where you start off. And I will shortly dive a bit deeper into these 3 areas.
Okay, so yes, poll number 2. How do you handle your customer subscriptions today? Let me see, I will launch this. There you go. ERP, financial systems, CRM, Excel, or do you have your own system built in-house? Let's see. Yes, we have a mix. Some have financial systems and own system built in-house. So it's a bit of a mix.
It usually is, and perhaps it's, for some of you, perhaps it's a bit of everywhere in these 4 options as well, perhaps. Moving on then, looking at the subscription sales channels and you know, the growth area that we talked about. I mean, subscription management can really cover multiple sales channels. And I think the early subscription management platforms was almost 100% focused on online sales and self-service, where you would publish, you know, really standardized offerings, you know, the price plans that you find under the pricing tab on the website. And I think this is what you recognize in almost all consumer business today, but also some business to small business. And of course, this is still very important and in many cases something to strive for. But now when subscriptions has taken over the B2B market as well, CRM and partner sales are 2 channels that also need subscription management support. So the typical scenarios for CRM sales, that channel perhaps could be the enterprise solutions with combinations of products and services that end up in somewhat custom contracts. And here you often have a negotiation process where quotes are iterated with the customer. But it could also be that you would use a partner channel where a reseller sells subscription, but the final contract would still be something you would need to manage. And here you often see quite a fragmented process with, quoting, billing, kickback, or commission management, and that a subscription management platform can support with knowing when and who and how much. And digging a bit deeper into the quote to cash process, because that is something we often see a strong desire to improve, and what benefits you can get from an integrated platform. We start off with quotes. And here, it's really possible to have a structured process that is designed for subscription. Really being able to put in, okay, is this a month-to-month contract, or is it a 12-month contract? How do we do renewals? And seeing what is the MRR from this quote. So really get an instant overview of how it would affect your business with the typical KPIs. And also worth mentioning that, it could also be a quote that leads to a change on an existing subscription as well. But however, the quote then converts into an active subscription when accepted. And with that final contract data, you get the real-time KPIs and the bookings without the hassle of spreadsheets. And of course, as I just said, subscriptions are usually dynamic and a bit of a moving target. So really having that proper tracking of all the changes, what has happened up until now, not only the current state, when was the renewal, when was the upsell, how much was the downsell, etc. And then based on that data that started off from the quote being transformed into a subscription, we can then, of course, start to automatically generate and send out the invoices, or could be, taking money from a credit card or other payment options. But really utilize both flexible and dynamic pricing models, perhaps introducing variable fees, often referred to as usage, without adding on any more manual processes, but really being able to elaborate on, how can we set up a good pricing structure for our customers or our customer segment. And finally, of course, getting paid, and the payment methods, as I said, depends a bit on geography, what is typical. But it could also be a mix, of course. But having an integrated system, the payment of an invoice is directly linked to the subscription line item, and then that is based, all the way back, and you can see the full tracking. So really removing a lot of manual step that we often see with many companies. Moving on a bit then to operations. This is a word that we'll keep saying, having a single truth of subscription data in a structured system, where you have all changes immediately entered. You can get benefits in your operations, removing all the post-its, or the remember to do something in 4 months because we've decided something with our customer. If we have all that data, we can use it and we can present it. So one thing is, to tie permissions in your platform to the subscription terms, meaning that you have full control over what customers should have access to in terms of products or services or features. But also, of course, what are the terms? When do the subscription end? And, is the customer's account in good standing in terms of payment? Could affect, perhaps you want to do a pop-out in your service saying, payment is due, or do something in the settings page. But it could also be other terms of, automating notifications, upcoming renewals, upcoming price adjustments, or, we will replace this plan with another plan. So really hook into, the data using API and webhooks to give a better customer experience. And as I said before, financials is often the first thing that you start off with. And it's not that strange, because these processes are often very manual and fragmented, with a disconnect between the the invoices and the subscriptions. I mean, all companies, I would say, have a proper set of invoices, but not that often the good connection with the underlying subscription. And of course, by introducing subscription management, you also get, real-time forecasting on cash flow, revenue, and, if you have variable charges, should we treat that as recurring revenue, or then you could see it as, let's see it as at least, an estimated future usage, or use the latest values as a best guess for the future, really providing you with a better overview of what's in store to come. Revenue recognition is also an area where there are a lot of spreadsheets out there, and we see more and more interest, and also requirements, I would say, in flexible revenue recognition, both in terms of models and how to do proration, when you have not the perfect months, but perhaps you make a change in the middle of a month, or you have to count on days, etc. But it could also be, we have both a physical thing and we have a service, and we bundled that together, how to do with revenue recognition and solving that in an automated way. And I think, like a key benefit with an integrated system is that you really have that connection between the detailed revenue recognition line all the way back to the subscription line item that was maybe sold, many years ago. So it's not top of mind anymore. And then, of course, we have the automation possibilities as well. When you have the subscriptions managed in a structured way, where all the details are entered and collected in the same place, we can, of course, automate invoice generation and to be sent out automatically. And here you also have the possibility, of course, to integrate with a traditional ERP or financial system for the accounts receivable and reconciliation process. Would also like to highlight a few customer cases that we worked with. Both of them, I would say, highlighting forecasting and real-time analysis of the subscription and revenue data. The top one, Formpipe, is more geared towards, really getting a grip on, what is the recurring revenue? How is that recognized? How can we forecast that, being a public company? And the other one, Quinix, a bit, tweaking it towards more like the backlog. What do we have contracted? What can we expect from the future? But still really having, all the data in gives you a lot of opportunities when it comes to forecasting and seeing what will the future bring. And if you want to read more on these testimonials, they are available on our website, younium.com, where you can read more. We're getting towards the end of the presentation as such, so I'd like to present a few key takeaways for you. One is, of course, select a platform that matches your business models. If I would say B2B can be quite different from a B2C SaaS or a B2b SaaS as well. But if that's your business, then there's a certain set of platforms. If it's more, B2B with more advanced subscriptions, that's another platform needed. one source of truth is really a must to get all the benefits. I think it's a bit similar like what we see in retail and what has happened over the last decade, where you can, you have the same opportunity to buy something online as you do in the shop. And in some cases you can, begin your purchase perhaps online and finalize it in the shop, etc. And I think we should address subscription management the same way. Perhaps, the first deal is made through sales, more direct sales, whereas upsells might be done, through an in-app or self-service experience, for example. But to do that, we really need to have, a truth somewhere and one source. 3, look at, possibilities to expand sales channels. How much of effort is really needed to, do an upsell if it depends on the customer has, acquired a new company? Perhaps it's fairly given that that requires some sort of expansion. Perhaps we can, make it easier for our customers to do the expansions without us having to put in all the effort, for instance. Adding on a new sales channel online for, a small business segment, perhaps. 4, automate provisioning, making sure, that what the customer is getting is also aligned with the subscription, and that it's timely and you don't spend too much time on doing this manually. And then, of course, also streamlining the financial operations, gaining the control and get real-time subscription and revenue data out of this in order to lead and steer the business the best way. Great, thanks. Monica.
Yes, thank you, Niklas. So yes, this is us. Well, some of us. Younium is a Swedish-based company, and we have clients from all around, as you can see them below. If you have any questions or thoughts, anything, please don't hesitate to contact us. We really love hearing from you. Also, if you want to do even more research, we have a blog where you can read, or please also follow us on LinkedIn. And as we promised, obviously, we can answer now questions. So please, if you have any questions, just go to the chat. We'll wait for a while. Let's see. Okay, what kind of connectors do you have integrations to?
Yeah, great question. We have a few different types of connectors. One is towards CRM systems, where you can find, like Salesforce, HubSpot, Dynamics, supporting that quote to cash process in the beginning, but also towards financial systems, and also a variety of payment gateways, billing gateways, and also a few customer success platforms. So there are quite a few. I think you can also explore a bit about them on our website.
Yes, thank you. And another question, how is Younium pricing mode?
Our pricing model is around matching towards value, and that value usually comes from sort of the size of the company. So one would be around how many legal entities are we, another one would be like how much are we processing in Younium then, and quite fairly, we don't do anything around what can be done in a traditional financial system, like sending out an invoice for a one-time fee. That is not our business, but really the value, what we bring around recurring and usage fees.
Perfect. And Rune is asking, where do you place Younium compared to competitors in size, complexity, and price?
I think of course, it depends on the competitors. I would say a majority of our competitors are more geared toward B2C, and as I said, B2 small b, where you have almost a consumer-like behavior. So that is one set. So that was the two, areas on the quadrant presented earlier. And then, of course, there are a few big players that wants to do both B2B, B2C, etc. If that is a general positioning. In size, I think there are some bigger, some smaller than us. And I think if we talk about sort of the size of who we are supporting, I think we are more geared towards a bit bigger companies than most of them, since we take aim at, B2B and perhaps more advanced. Yeah, there were so many perspectives on that question. I hope I answered a few of them at least.
Yes, we have a lot of questions actually, and it's past the time, but one final we can answer. Can your system handle a subscription that has one price for half the year and another price for the other half of the year?
Yes. So
yes.
Either by
short
2 rows or a short discount for the first 6 months. That's no problem.
And if we did not answer your questions, obviously we will in an email or some sort. Yes. That was it for us.
Great. Almost on time.
Yeah.
1 minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.